What's going on, guys? I'm Jeremy LaRose. Welcome to LSH Live. We're here with Charlie. If you guys remember him from last summer, Macy's behind the camera.
Hello, everyone.
So we're going to take a little bit of video on Hunter our Saddle. One topic that we haven't covered much on our videos so far. This horse has been with me for the better part of the summer now. If you guys remember him before, he liked to have his head in the air. We went fast. I think the last time you guys saw him was quite a while ago, and we were holding his head up and trying to teach him to stand his shoulders up. So we're gonna talk about Hunter our Saddle, talk about some of the things that I look for in my horses. Hunter's one of my favorite classes. It's fun to see these horses go out there and really stretch their strides. One thing that I hate seeing in a Hunter class, our horses just scrambling around. And it's something that I see it's super common. Your horse is just flying around, their legs are going 100 miles an hour, there's just a blur going around the arena. Just like in pleasure, slow legs are harder, it's a higher degree of difficulty. So I want my horse to perform the highest degree of difficulty and make it look the easiest, right? So we talk about lifting our horse up. He's gonna lift his body in the air so he can stride his legs out there and have slow legs and steady rhythm when he does it. Now, when we long trot these horses, it's easy to get focused on, just like in showmanship or any other class, get focused on what the finished product should look like, and then you end up forgetting what it takes to get there. Right? And you kind of ignore your fundamentals and you focus on the end goal. And I see it all the time. People start their 2-year-olds and they're worried about like making a hunter horse. So they try to teach it to long trot. And I think that's kind of backwards. Again, just like anything else, just like Western pleasure, showmanship, reining, whatever class that you're in, there's a foundation of fundamentals that you've got to have. And then from there you branch out. Right? So I might take my horse after he's got a good foundation and say 6 months of training and make him a pleasure horse, make him a hunter horse, make him a horsemanship horse, trail horse, Western riding horse, whatever that might be. Same rule applies to my hunter horse, right? He's got to have a good foundation first before I go on and teach him to do hunter and really let him stretch out there, right? Because if you stretch him out and you let him get long, you're not going to have the tools in place to bring him back. And I would much rather push my horse out from a good place right here than try to bring him back from a bad one, right? And I see that all the time. People holding their horses back and then they fold their chins up and their legs just plow through your hands, right? We've seen that all the time. You see that in pleasure classes where people have taught their horses to go slow improperly and their horses are running through their hands and that chin's folded up and they're just still, they either stunt their stride or they never slow down, right? So that's slowing down in a bad way. So by the same token, in reverse, you're gonna be able to push your horse out in a good way by being able to make him come back, okay? So it's kind of backwards to what you would think. Like we might start our pleasure horse teaching him to push out so that he can come back. And we're gonna teach our hunter horse how to come back so that he can push out, right? It's all about opposites, okay? Because if you try to take your horse and long trot him and make it look like a hunter horse, you're gonna end up with no control and you're gonna end up just kind of running around the class, all right? And we call that feeling being on rails. I hate showing a horses on rails where I feel like I'm not the one in control and I'm just kind of sitting back in my train car and everything's just going 70 miles an hour, right? We don't want that. So what I'd rather have is I want a horse that's gonna come back to me, okay? A lot of the comments that I got when I asked the question were on Hunter under saddle and how do I get my horse to poke his nose out, all right? So it's huge for me in any class, especially hunter, that it starts with the ability to drop my horse's neck down. Okay, so I want to be able to pick up and have him accept that pressure and stay down. I'm in a medium twist snaffle and a training fork today. I think that's a great piece of training equipment for a hunter horse because you're going to be able to drop him down and create that and kind of get yourself a little bit of leverage to teach him that position and kind of have that instant karma when you do it. That being said, one of the hardest things to do in a set of draw reins or a training fork is to get your hands out in front of you. This is where they belong. Right? Not back here, don't hold him back, or what you're gonna do is, see, this doesn't even engage the fork at all. My fork is not being used whatsoever right there. I'm just pulling his chin back and I'm in a training fork, all right? The only way you're gonna get your fork engaged to pick up out in front of you, right in there, all right? So there's where he hits my fork. That's how my fork gets used. So you wanna make sure you pick up to keep this neck dropped right here. That's gonna give him the greatest chance to pick up his back right here. He's gotta stay down in our hands. It's one thing this horse did not do very well. The other thing you've gotta watch for with your horse, and it kind of goes one of two ways. This horse, when he came to us, had been handled a lot in his face, right? Handled a lot improperly, okay? So he's gonna have a hard time accepting pressure with your hands to where he'll sit on your bit and stay there, right? Because what he figured out was he could hide his chin behind the vertical and just bow up right here and then never get touched with the bit. So he could avoid contact with the bit by bowing up his face and hiding his chin. So what we had to teach this horse to do is when we pick up, he'll kind of sit in those reins and stay right there, all right? So the big thing about that, how did we do that, right? One of two ways. Either you teach him to push, where you'll see him root his nose sometimes, right? How would you teach your horse to do anything? When you put the pressure on, you stay in until he gives you what you want. So when this horse roots on my hands, I can turn loose, right? So I can just kind of softly hold these reins, light contact. There he kind of pushes into it. I'll give it back to him. I'll take a hold again. There's a bigger push. I'll give it back to him. There's a bigger push right in here. I'll give it back to him. And look how fast I can teach him to really extend his nose out there, right? By being feely with my hands and being soft with everything, okay? Now, that's one way to teach how to do it. The other way to teach how to do it, and what we had to do with him, was teach him that holding his chin up was not a way out, all right? And so when he held his chin up, we just tightened on the reins a little bit more. And we said, hey, now he's gonna push all over my hands now. But we said, hey, bring your chin in here. Now this is not a way out, right? So we're gonna learn to work right in here, and you're gonna be way tucked up so you don't get away from my hands. And sometimes when you get horses that hide their chins, that's what you'll have to learn how to do, is take a hold of them more, all right? As long as you're taking a hold of them fairly and giving back to them when they get what you want, all right? So if I pick up on his horse and I ask him to give his chin, you can see how soft he is right here, that he just comes to me, I got little wiggles on the reins, I can just kind of make that bit shuffle and he folds right up the way I want him to. Notice how he stays down in my hands. I still have weight in my reins, all right? There'll be horses that you get on and you pick up your hands, you'll have no weight right there. There'll be nothing to pull against, right? And the reason that happens is because that head and neck comes up, okay? So if that head and neck lifts up, you're gonna keep pulling and you're gonna be pulling on air, all right? So we gotta have that down pressure. Remember how we did that, right? We shuffled him right here, we dropped that neck down, we let him sit in our hands. We don't pull back on him for yanking on us, right? He's gonna root his nose a little bit, and that's okay for where he is in training, all right? So I don't mind that at all. Just take a hold, let him push on it, get out. Take a hold, let him push on it, get out. Because remember we talked about with the bit discussion how when they push on our hands, it depends on your equipment whether that's acceptable or not. If he's somewhere in the middle on a medium twist snaffle, that's really where I want him, right? That's really where I'd like him to be. If he's hiding from a thin twist and he's pushing too much on a smooth snaffle, that's a great spot for my horse to be in. Now, if my horse is pushing against a thin twist and hiding from a smooth snaffle, I've got some work to do. Right? So just keep that in mind. Whatever equipment you're in, there's got to be a certain level of this is acceptable or this is too much, whether it's folding his chin back or pushing too much. All right? And that's going to be completely dependent on your equipment. So there's a couple variables you got to keep in mind, right? One is, what is my horse's response when he feels the pressure? And then two, is that response justified based on what bit I have or what equipment I have on? All right? If my horse is lazy and instead of ball spurs, I kind of expect that. If he's lazy and instead of rock grinders, I've got an issue, right? So when we take a hold, I want to make sure that I can take a hold and I can squeeze my feet. Okay, so take a hold, squeeze my feet, see how my neck doesn't come up. I don't want my neck to shoot up into the air. He's got to stay down with pressure. That's the same thing, whether it's any class you go in. Do not want my horse's neck to lift up when I go to my feet. So see how I can squeeze my feet, his neck stays down. I like that. That's a good response, okay? So from there, we're gonna take up our trot. So we're gonna do a sit trot. I want him to come up in the air. I want this horse to be collected. I want him to be round, and I want him to be cadenced and rhythmic. So I'm just trotting him around. This would be my warm-up on any horse, right? Kind of a medium little trot here. Any hunter horse has got to be able to get here. He's got to be able to stay here, not push on me, not challenge his position too much. I want this horse to trot along. I want him to have a little bit of lift. I want him to have good rhythm. So how do we tell good rhythm when we jog? Do both of my spurs hit his sides at the same time? This would be all pushing now. Both of my spurs got to hit his sides at the same time, right? So that's I'm jogging along, got both legs, feel both sides of his belly, doing this, same time, right? And you can see that in my body, how if I just relax my arms and let them flop, see how they go even? I'm not forcing them to do that, I'm just riding like Jello up here, right? And letting his rise and fall control that. Now, if I start doing this, you can hear how that's not good rhythm. Right? You can hear that, how it wouldn't be good rhythm. So it certainly is not going to be a 1-2 cadence jog like what you're looking for if you're going like this, left to right in your saddle. Okay? So I want your bounce, if your horse is really square, which if you're getting everything out of a long trot that you can, it's going to be. If your jog is really square, both of your legs and both of your arms are going to be moving at the same time. That's riding your horse square in the middle, all right? So unlike a lope, where we've got a little bit of arc to our horse, a little bit of cant to him, and our legs hit at different times, a jog is really straight, right? Or a trot is really straight. So I've got to make sure that he stays really straight in his body, really straight in his ribs, if I want him to use himself all the way through here and keep everything chugging along right here, okay? So, when I'm long trotting my horse around, you see how I do not post? I don't want to have to post my horse around. I think it's a lot of work. I don't want to have to do that. So I want to be able to come here, just ride my horse right here, push him up a little bit. If I put a little bit more lift in my seat, a little more bounce in my feet, you can see I can pick his legs up, pick his body up, and I can push my trot out a little bit. Now, nothing should change from here when I go from my sit trot like this to my posting trot at first. All right? So when you're sitting along here, we're thinking about the rhythm of our horse, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? We'll go up into our diagonal, we'll get a little bit left to right, we'll feel that bounce on our horse's sides, we'll take up our post, we'll get our diagonal every time. We're gonna come right here, and nothing should have changed. So my rhythm should stay the same, okay? When I post on my horse, I want to keep my hands really steady. You can see there, I'm looking at my hands. They're super steady. They're locked right in, okay? I don't want to see this. This is balancing off your horse's face, right? And you're going to mess up his trot when you do that. You're going to get in his way. So I want you to be able to hold your hands out front, hold yourself up. You see how I've got my upper body really steady? All the drama happens below my waist, all right? So all of the drama is happening below my waist. My upper body needs to stay really steady. I don't want there to be a lot moving around up here. So if you can't get here and ride along and be doing this, you're going to have a heck of a time teaching your horse how to trot. So you want to be here, keep everything steady, keep everything soft and smooth. All right? Now, the next thing about my post that's really important to me is I want to make sure that I'm not doing a lot of short posting, right? Or guarded posting. So you see where I get full extension on my legs, I post way up into the air, I post on my toes, okay? So see where I'm at, I'm on my toes, all my weight in my stirrups right there. Really important to me that you get there. You gotta be able to get on your toes. So it's right here, stand up, full extension, leg is beneath me, right? I'm in front of my toes. See where I'm at, right? So when I post on my horse, I wanna be able to get here, my calves are burning, right? My ankles are working, the bottom of my foot's working, okay? You gotta be able to get there. Pick yourself up, set yourself down. Pick yourself up, set yourself down, all right? So I hold a little bit with my knees, but I'm really loose through here. Really loose through my upper leg. That's not what's holding. I'm not pinching my horse right here, all right? It's really important to be able to do that because your horse is gonna follow your rhythm, all right? The longer I can spend coming up, hold that, come back down, hold that, come back up, hold that. That's my whole time for my horse's stride, all right? If you're short posting, you're gonna be doing this while he's trying to reach out there and grab a lot of ground, okay? You're gonna be banging all over him while he's trying to get here like this and use himself, okay? So really keep that in mind. You've gotta control this horse's speed out of the speed of your post. That takes being a strong rider, okay? That takes being in control of your body, not only riding your horse's rhythm well, but taking that rhythm and making it yours. All right? And I want my horse to follow my seat. That being said, if you're a trainer and you're watching this, when you teach horses to follow your seat, you've also got to bring your riders up to speed, right? They've also got to be better riders themselves. Because if I teach my horse to follow my seat really well, and then I send someone out there who does not control their seat, that horse is going to follow their seat, and sometimes that's just off into the sunset, right? So keep that in mind. You've got to get your horse to where he'll follow your seat, but also bring your riders up to speed to be able to control that speed out of their seat, okay? Otherwise, you end up in a bunch of trouble, all right? So some of that is teach the horse first, teach him to ignore what the rider's doing, then when the rider and you are both good enough, bring everybody up to speed, because a horse and rider that rides together, where they follow your seat, is really manageable and it's super pretty to watch, all right? And that would be more towards like an equitation or a horsemanship style class where they've got to move together. And that'll really come into play when we go to a lope down to a trot, all right? So that down transition, super important. Being able to follow your seat, you go from loping here to trotting here. The horse got to be able to feel the difference. So if I'm sitting back here and I'm loping like this, he's got to know the difference between this and this and what those two things feel like, all right? So a good way to test that, if you're not sure whether your horse listens to your seat or not, start posting your lope, all right? Just release everything, say hey, and start posting your lope. And see if your horse comes down immediately to you or if he runs off into the sunset and just completely ignores what you're doing, right? A lot of the times, your horse will just rush off and keep loping because he's not paying attention to the rhythm of your seat, all right?